You don't need to be funnier. You don't need to be more attractive, more confident, or more interesting than everyone else in the room. And yet, some people walk into a space and within minutes, everyone around them just relaxes. They're not performing. They're not trying particularly hard. So what is actually happening? Turns out likability has almost nothing to do with how impressive you are. It has almost everything to do with a handful of small, almost invisible adjustments certain people make without ever pointing them out. Nobody teaches this stuff in school. Nobody hands you a manual. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. So let's get into 10 of these subtle skills, one at a time. The first one is simple, but it changes everything. Most people walk into a conversation quietly asking themselves, how do I make a good impression right now? The more likable version of that question is completely different. It's, what can I notice about this person? Picture two people meeting a coworker for the second time. One of them says something pleasant but generic. Good to see you again. The other one says, weren't you telling me last week about your trip to Lisbon? How was the food? Same amount of effort. Wildly different effect. Because the second person just proved something the first person didn't. You weren't forgettable to me. And that feeling of not being interchangeable, of being specifically remembered rather than generally acknowledged, is worth more than any clever thing you could possibly say. Now let's talk about compliments, because most of us are pretty bad at giving them. We default to the big, vague ones. You're amazing. You're so smart. Nice job. They land somewhere between polite and forgettable, mostly because they sound like something you'd say to literally anyone. Compare that to noticing something specific. Hey, the way you stayed calm when that meeting fell apart was honestly impressive. Or, that was really kind of you to check in on her after what happened. Specific compliments hit differently because they can't be faked easily. They prove observation instead of obligation. Anyone can toss out "you're so talented" on their way out the door. It takes actual attention to notice the quieter, more particular things someone did well. So next time you're tempted to say something generic, pause for one extra second and try to find the detail instead. Here's a skill almost nobody uses, even though it costs absolutely nothing. Asking the second question. Most conversations go like this. I just got back from a trip to Lisbon. Oh, nice. Anyway, so I was telling you about my weekend. That's a completed transaction, not a conversation. The more likable version stays one beat longer. What surprised you most about it? Suddenly the other person lights up because you just signaled something rare. That you were actually curious, not just waiting for your turn to talk. This isn't about interrogating people or turning every hangout into an interview. It's about resisting the urge to treat someone's answer as a launchpad back to yourself. Which, funny enough, leads straight into a habit almost all of us are guilty of at some point. Competing with other people's stories. Someone tells you they just finished their first half marathon. And before they've even finished the sentence, you're already rehearsing your own marathon story. The one with the blister, the wrong shoes, and the guy who passed out at mile 9. Someone mentions a rough flight, and somehow yours involved 3 cancellations, a thunderstorm, and what can only be described as the slow collapse of modern air travel. We laugh about this because we all do it. But there's a quieter kind of confidence that lets someone else's story simply stay theirs for a moment. You don't need to prove you can relate. Sometimes the most likable response to a good story is just, wow, tell me more. Not, well, let me tell you about the time I went through something similar, but slightly worse. Now here's where things get a little more emotionally delicate, because this next one says a lot about a person's character. It's how they handle other people's small, embarrassing moments. Someone mispronounces a word in a meeting, someone spills a drink, someone forgets a name they clearly should remember, someone tells a joke that lands in total silence. You've seen both reactions play out. Some people can't resist making the moment bigger. They repeat the mispronounced word out loud, just to make sure everyone caught it. They laugh a little too long, or shoot a glance around the table to see who else noticed. It's not always cruelty. Sometimes it's just reflex. But the effect on the other person is the same. A tiny mistake suddenly feels like a public event. Others do the opposite. They let the moment pass so smoothly, it practically disappears. Someone fumbles a word, and instead of reacting, they just continue the sentence like nothing happened, maybe repeating the correct word back naturally, a beat later without ever pointing it out. No comment, no look, no pause, just forward motion. That instinct to shrink embarrassment instead of magnify it might be one of the clearest signs of social maturity there is. It takes half a second, and yet almost nobody does it consistently. And it points to something that's going to matter more and more as we keep going. The people everyone loves being around don't just tolerate awkward moments. They make situations feel safer without ever announcing that's what they're doing. Which brings us to what I'd call the social rescue. Picture a group conversation where someone keeps trying to say something and keeps getting talked over. It happens constantly. Nobody's being cruel. Conversations just move fast. Energy jumps around the table, and quieter voices get buried under louder ones without anyone meaning for it to happen. But a socially skilled person notices it in real time. And a minute later, they circle back and say, "Wait, you were saying something about that earlier? Go ahead." It seems like such a small gesture, barely worth mentioning. And yet the effect is enormous. Because you just told that person, without saying it directly, that their voice mattered enough for you to remember it had been cut off in the first place. That's a very different feeling from simply being included. It's being sought out. This shows up in other forms too, once you start paying attention. Explaining an inside joke to the person who just walked in, so they're not left smiling awkwardly at a punchline they didn't understand. Pulling the quiet person into the conversation with a gentle, specific question instead of a spotlighting one. So they're invited rather than put on the spot. Noticing when someone looks even slightly uncomfortable and steering the conversation somewhere safer without making a scene about it. None of this is flashy. None of it earns applause in the moment. But all of it is remembered. Now for one that takes a bit more restraint than most people expect. Matching the emotion before offering the solution. Someone tells you about a genuinely frustrating day at work, and the instinct for a lot of us is to jump straight into fix-it mode. Have you tried talking to your manager? Why don't you just set boundaries? Here's my 5-point plan for saving your entire career. Advice isn't the problem. Timing is. Because when you skip straight to solutions before acknowledging how someone actually feels, what you're kind of saying, without meaning to, is that their feelings are a problem you'd like handled as wishy as possible. Try this instead. Before offering a single suggestion, just say, "That sounds genuinely exhausting." Or, "That would frustrate me too." That one sentence does more emotional work than an entire list of advice, because it tells the person you're sitting with them inside the feeling for a moment, instead of trying to hurry them out of it. And here's the interesting part. Once someone feels heard, they're usually a lot more open to actual advice a minute later. You haven't lost anything by waiting. You've just earned the right to be listened to. This next one took me a while to notice in myself. Letting people change without constantly reminding them who they used to be. You? Going to the gym now? Since when do you wake up before 9? These comments feel harmless, even affectionate, but they quietly do something a little unkind. They freeze a person inside an old version of themselves and ask them to keep proving they've actually changed. The alternative is just simple curiosity instead of nostalgic teasing. "Oh, that's great. What got you into it?" Letting someone evolve without demanding an explanation for their own growth is one of the kindest, quietest things you can offer another human being. It costs you nothing, and it gives them something most people rarely get. Permission to be different from who they were last year without having to defend it. This next one is one of the most reliable predictors of how trustworthy people find you, and it has nothing to do with how you treat people to their face. It's how you talk about them when they're not in the room. You've been in that group where someone leaves and the tone instantly shifts. The gossip starts before the door even closes. It's entertaining in the moment. Sure. But everyone left in that circle is filing away one piece of information. That's how this person talks about people who aren't there to defend themselves. And eventually, everyone realizes they'll be that empty chair too. This doesn't mean pretending every single person you know is wonderful. It means understanding that restraint builds trust in a way flattery never really can. What you choose not to say about someone can make people feel safer around you than almost anything you say directly to their face. And this last one, honestly, might be the most mature skill on the entire list. Knowing when not to perform. You don't need the funniest line in every conversation. You don't need to correct every small mistake someone makes. You don't need to win every disagreement or fill every silence with something clever. Confidence stops needing an audience once it's actually real. And ironically, the person who doesn't need to dominate a room is usually the one people remember as the most likable one in it. So, step back for a second and look at everything we just went through. None of these are manipulation tricks. None of them are about performing charm until people are fooled into liking you. Every single one is really about the same underlying thing: reducing unnecessary friction between you and the people around you. Noticing instead of performing. Protecting someone's dignity instead of exploiting a slip-up. Including someone instead of quietly competing with them. Listening all the way through instead of just waiting for your turn. Go back to the social rescue for a second because it captures the whole point better than any of the others. Remembering that someone got interrupted and circling back to them seems like nothing. A tiny gesture barely worth mentioning, but it tells that person something much bigger than the words themselves. It tells them, you mattered enough for me to notice, and enough for me to remember. That's really the whole secret hiding underneath this entire list. The people everyone enjoys being around aren't the ones working hardest to be noticed. They're the ones who make everyone else feel worth noticing. And once you start looking for it, you realize it's a skill anyone can build. It doesn't require charisma you were born with or a personality you have to fake. It just requires paying a little more attention than most people bother to. So here's a question worth sitting with for a second. Out of everything we just went through, which one do you already do without thinking? And which one might be worth practicing this week? Drop it in the comments. I'd genuinely like to know. If this gave you something worth thinking about, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.